Hi everybody, it's Jane again. It's good to see you here. I'm back again with my theories about art and how much it's going to change in the future and how beautiful it will be and how it can absolutely change the landscape around us and the way we live when we integrate art into everything. So this topic is called the changing topography of Arterrain. For too long, there has been a torrential downpour of control over art. Visual art especially is mired in a vast bog of mud that requires heavy machinery to lift art out and cleanse its mucky academic debris. So, as humanity moves ever closer to a more elevated consciousness, the true function of art is torpedoing to the surface as a major life skill for all to realize. Art is about to undergo a renaissance of sorts for this age in these changing times of mass awakening. So why has art been held back and, what I like to call, value butchered? For what reason, pray tell? Because art is intrinsically connected to freedom of expression, and freedom of expression is highly frowned upon by those who desire to control humanity. Uniformity is much easier to manage than spontaneity. And those who control humanity also control the institutions of our education. Artistic expression and implementation across all areas of study is the match to the fireworks that ignites our human quantum evolution. Quantum evolution itself influences and accelerates biological evolution and human consciousness, and threatens to leave the old school of control on every level in the choking dust of establishment mores. So it so happened that many years ago, like in the 1900s, establishment think tanks were formed to deal with this problem of human creative containment. And one of those institutes was called the Tavistock Institute. And that was a think tank, which a think tank is also known as a policy institute. So it's a research institute that performs research and advocacy concerning social policy, economics, political strategy, military, technology, and most importantly, culture. And so it follows that culture basically covers the social behaviors found in human societies, also the knowledge, beliefs, arts, there it is, laws, customs, capabilities, and habits of the people therein. And the United States has almost 2,000 think tanks working every day to keep humanity in line. So it follows also then that the culture of art needed to be tempered and diverted into a wholly manageable entity. So the ways in which this occurred was slowly over time, so as not to sound the alarm of their plans to contain the runaway vagabond known as creativity. And so far, these are the steps that I've observed that they have taken to rein art in. These are the confines of art in which we exist. So I'm going to point those out first, and then I'm going to state the remedies. So the biggest thing they do is they promote the starving artist myth, like Van Gogh. You die poor and starving, and you never make any money, and then along comes some people and discover your art and they make a fortune. So, you have to die to be famous. And the other one is they infiltrate the psyche with the stick figure syndrome. I've talked about that before, but there's more to it than that. It's like you believe that you're either an artist or you are not an artist, and there's no in between, and no one is born naturally artistic, which couldn't be further from the truth because everybody is born creative. And another thing they do is they give art minor prominence in education curriculums. They teach art haphazardly and grade it by means of obtuse standards. And by this I mean, the teacher's preference comes into play, and the individual artist is not nurtured because there's lots of students and they don't have the time to devote to nurturing each student and their particular areas of interest in art. And also what they do is they dispense with the arts first when there's funding issues, and they consider it to be one of the least important things that you can learn, which is by design. Another thing they do is they evaluate art through academic institutions in order to own and rate art's credibility. So they own it and they rate it, and they decide where you fall within that realm of their academia. They make art difficult for the average person to make a living from, unless it's through commercial avenues. So mostly designers and advertising in that area, that you can make money there, but not so much with fine art. And they also select the art of only those who have been through established art academies as worthwhile and valuable, which makes it a closed system. And outside of that, you can see, people just think it's some little cottage industry of these people just painting here and there. They also have a tendency to make people believe that anything can be art, such as a urinal by Marcel Duchamp, which he presented in 1917, or that banana duct taped to a wall by Maurizio Cattelan, which was only just recently in 2019. And that banana taped to the wall, you have to buy the banana, you got to get the duct tape, you follow the instructions, and you pay $120,000 for a piece of paper that certifies that it was indeed the work of Maurizio Cattelan. So that's crazy stuff right there. How can we even deal with that? How can we put it into the realm of functionality? It just makes everyone believe that there's some sort of trickery involved, and it's not what you know and how you do it, but it's who you know and who you're connected to and where you can go and tape your banana to a wall. Another thing they do is they establish contemporary genres within which the infinite nature of art remains confined, such as minimalism, pop art, art informel or abstract expressionism, hyperrealism, conceptualism, etc., etc., and they keep recycling these genres over decades. Like, you can go to a recent exhibit today and you can still see pop art, just like Andy Warhol did it. It's just like copying and reproducing someone else's inspiration, and then that's okay because it's called pop art. That's how they operate. So you never burst out of those parameters. Then they take commercial fine art and they subject it to assets, investment, monetization, and laundering practices. If you've ever wondered why some ugly little painting sells for $30 million, there's usually something going on in the background where they're laundering the money. And they blasphemize art for sadistic occult purposes. And you just have to look at the art of somebody like Biljana Djurdjevic and Avish Kebrezadeh. And you see very, very haunting paintings of children hanging in showers and looking very thin, and it's all connected to the occult. And those paintings go for a lot of money, but you have to be in some club. You have to be in this satanic club. So there they are in the upper echelons of the art system, upholding dastardly imagery as the zenith of an aesthetic occult trend. And these same people are the ones that scoff at aesthetically beautiful and well-mastered creations, and they end up being on the lower rungs of the system. They also fail to integrate creativity into all disciplines, to implement a more holistic approach in studies, and most recently, to digitalize art and create a firewall between the human and source energy through the creation of digital art. They also create artificial intelligent artists where no human is even involved in the creative process, and they give these AI artists prominence through solo exhibitions, if you can believe that. So now AI is more likely to get an exhibit than lowly old you and me. So let's rip that cultural model up and return to the quantum evolution of art, shall we? So what does that look like? Well, I'd say we unconfine art as a whole, and we start teaching it early and properly. And by properly, I mean the basics first, and then the freedom to deviate from the basics at will without the judgment of teachers. The basics constitute, of course, color, perspective, anatomy, drawing, light and shade, composition, and knowledge and care of art tools. We nurture the creative juices that flow naturally through the human body and spark the creative neurons in the brain. We do not grade and measure with personalized, haphazard art standards. And instead of grading, we can offer certificates of completion. So you studied the work, you did the work, you know the basics, you have the certificate. You move on. We can also allow for artistic creativity to spill over into the sciences, architecture, health, economics, etc., etc., social sciences, and that way we'll be fomenting a far more holistic paradigm for humans to exist within, because the creativity that is learned at an early age and fires up the neurons in the brain with the imagination can be applied to all other disciplines. And then we need to allow the art's passage gleefully into its maturity in all realms of our existence. And then we slowly thaw the art frozen back into the once dormant regions of their imagination. And I have spoken about that before too, where there's some trauma or other that happened and the person becomes art frozen, and then they just cease to be creative for the rest of their lives. We also need to lose the confinement of genres, because that's like a prison wall around your art, because then you say, well, I'm a realist, or I'm a pop artist, or I do art informel, and then you stay within that realm and you never grow out of it. So we need to remove that hierarchy from the art system and determine for ourselves the true value of art and become art sovereign. We don't leave it up to others to decide the value of our art. We decide it for ourselves. And we let every human know that they are born creative and are connected to Source which is at their disposal from which to draw inspiration toward the conscious human evolution. So just imagine for a second the ramifications of letting art and the creativity that artistry represents out of the confining, stunting barriers that has been holding it back. Think of all the harsh straight lines and sharp edges we encounter every day as we move about. Think about those lines now being curved and more harmonious in connection with nature, relating more to nature. And I'm not saying here that all angles are bad, but, they have their place. But when it gets to rows and rows of endless boxes, it's not an aesthetic to which to aspire. So the goal of that would be like people, and especially actually sick people, need to be uplifted by their environment. Uplifted by their environment. And not brought down by it. Homes with no art in them are dreary, and our entire life experience could be surrounded by our endless creativity. And, then there would be the naysayers that come along and say, well, it's cost, and, protesting about it costs too much, and only rich people can have that. But, with the new technologies that are now available, like 3D printers and everything, the cost of beauty is descending. So when you add creative ingenuity to the equation, costs can be cut even more, because you even attribute your imagination and your ideas to even how to cut costs. That's the beauty of learning art at a young age. The price of living in grey, angular environs takes its toll on the people who dwell therein. I'm sure many studies have been done to prove this obvious conclusion, because people are uplifted in beautiful environments, and it has been scientifically proven that just looking at still images of nature is enough natural stimulus to lower stress levels. So imagine if our immediate environments reflected and enhanced the beauty of nature around us, or the other way around. There is no greater artist than nature itself, when you think about it. So this is the power of art. This is the unleashing time of humanity's highest potential for creativity. And it all starts with art and reviving our natural, harmonious aesthetic through practicing art in all its forms, starting at an early age. I like to say, water, food, shelter, art, in that order. So vital it is. It is time for art to be elevated and put to use for humanity in the way it was originally intended. Creativity lives in the realm of the divine, and art is a pathway to that divinity. Our creativity was given to us to elevate our humanity, to be respected and revered as an integral part of humanity's soul expression. So thank you very much for listening. Please share and like and comment. I'd love to hear some comments. And come back next Sunday and see what I've got for you then. And I do hope to be teaching lessons in the future. Some people have asked, but I haven't quite got to the curriculum yet. It's getting there, and when I'm ready, I will let everyone know. Thanks a lot. Bye.